Look, fellas, if you're a serious fragrance collector, I'm going to talk to you guys about 10 fragrances, in my humble opinion, that I feel like every serious fragrance collector should have in their collection. Let's get into it. What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Darren, the Bowtie Fragrance Guy. We talk about fashion on this channel. We also talk about fragrance, of course. So if you're into fashion and fragrance, this is the channel for you, man. Consider subscribing to the channel. And don't forget, hit that bell icon as well. That way when I upload new content on YouTube, you'll be one of the first people to get notified. Guys, you see the title of today's video. I'm talking about 10 fragrances that I feel like every serious fragrance collector should have in his collection. Now, again, I said collector. I'm not talking about the average casual wearer that only has 1 to 5 fragrances. I'm not saying these are the fragrances that you need to run out and like make your signature scent or that you should be wearing right now today. I'm just saying as a collector. That means somebody that's really invested into this hobby, that's not just stopping through looking for 1 or 2 fragrance recommendations to pick up for the year. You know, the collectors. I mean, if you got over, in my humble opinion, if you got over 30, 40 fragrances, that's we really started to really collect fragrances because we can't wear them all every day, obviously. So I'm talking to the collectors out there. These are 10 that I think every collector should have in his collection. Now, I have my reasons and rationale for each of the fragrances that I've chosen. Again, your mileage may vary. I didn't start collecting fragrances in 1985. All right, so a lot of the vintage stuff, that's really not my area. There's other channels on YouTube that focus on more vintage fragrances. That's not my thing. But when I really started being conscious and being able to select fragrances from my own, which was mid-late 90s, that's kind of sort of where I'm coming from that perspective. I think every serious collector does have or should have all 10 of these fragrances. So if you want to see what's on my list, you guys know the routine. Keep it locked right here. Let's get it.
The Bowtie Fragrance Guy.
Ain't nobody dope as me. I'm just so fresh and so clean. Don't you? What's good, guys? We're back, man. Thank you so much for keeping it locked in. We're gonna jump into this list of fragrances. Guys, I've been dressed down a little bit more the last couple of days because just like you guys, shoot, I'm home for the holidays. So, you know, I don't just go upstairs and put on a suit and a tie just because. Usually, I am about to head to work or I've gotten home from work when I record my video. So typically that's why you'll see me in a suit and tie. But today, I'm just chilling, man. I got on this nice Ralph Lauren polo sweatshirt. It's really, really comfortable. And so I just want to relax and talk to you guys about some good fragrances. So the first fragrance up on my list that I feel like every serious fragrance collector should have in his collection is one from the house of Jean-Paul Gaultier, and this is Le Male. Le Male. Or some people say Le Male. I will accept either answer as correct. So I feel like everybody should have this if you're a serious collector. Look, I've had this bottle for a long time. I don't wear it that much anymore. It's all the way down to here. You know what I mean? So there's not a lot left. And again, I don't really wear it a lot, but we're talking about what people should have in their collection, not what you should be rocking today, but I really feel like all serious collectors have this or should have this fragrance in their collection. This one is one of those fragrances that started a craze. It was done by Maison Francis Kurkdjian himself before he actually started his own brand. I think this was 1996, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just one of those iconic fragrances. Most of the fragrance collectors I know have it. Most people's dad or their uncle had this fragrance as well. It was just one of those scent DNAs that was kind of groundbreaking when it came out. And, you know, again, it's one of those fragrances that kind of spawned a lot of other fragrances that kind of piggyback on this DNA because it was so successful. So that's why I feel like this is one that should be on this list. This is kind of an iconic fragrance from the bottle presentation, which was definitely groundbreaking, to the actual scent itself. That whole mint, sandalwood, you know, lavender thing. It just works, man. It smells great. And It's one of the scents for me personally back in the day that got me into it. And I'm like, man, I really need to get myself a bottle of that. Super expensive to me back then, but obviously, it's just iconic in its own right. So check it out. I think everybody should have this if you're serious about collecting. It's from the house of Jean-Paul Gaultier, and this is called Le Men. All right, guys, this next fragrance is from the house of Christian Dior, and this is the original Dior Homme. The original Dior Homme. Again, I can't speak for the new iterations of this fragrance, the newer ones that came out around 2020, but this is one of the OGs. And to me, I chose this one, the original Dior Homme, because to me, for guys, it started that Irish craze. Now, there have been a lot of fragrances afterward that are really good as well. Valentino Uomo Intense, Prada L'Homme Intense. There's a lot of fragrances that kind of mimic this DNA as well. Most recently, we've had Givenchy Reserve Privé. Another fragrance. Fragrances from that line kind of borrowed from that whole Irish thing. That I think this particular fragrance, the original Dior Homme, started that whole Irish craze and making it cool for guys to wear fragrances that were kind of powdery, and not really feel like they were wearing anything that was feminine, if that makes sense. Amazing fragrance. Still one of the best, definitely from the Dior Homme line itself, the original Dior Homme. I think this is a fragrance that every serious collector should have in their fragrance collection. All right, this next fragrance is from the house of Tom Ford, and this is Tobacco Vanille. Tobacco Vanille from the private collection. When these fragrances released in 2007, the initial collection of fragrances that were released in the private blend collection, they were groundbreaking. And to me, this is the most popular of the private blend for Tom Ford. Now, I know some of you will probably say Tuscan Leather will give this a run for its money, and I don't completely disagree with that argument, but I will tell you this one has crossed genders. Whereas I think mostly guys go for Tuscan Leather, you will see a lot of females as well that love to wear Tobacco Vanille. Just like the name indicates, there's tobacco, there's vanilla, and there are dried fruits, which are the main notes in this fragrance. And ladies and gentlemen, both alike love this fragrance DNA. Now, one of the reasons that I chose something from the private blends is because I think this private blend collection from Tom Ford kind of started the craze of other designer fragrance brands coming out with their more exclusive or higher end designer fragrance collections. See Christian Dior, see YSL, see Chanel. So there's been a lot of different brands that came up with their exclusive or privé collections. And I think this one kind of got it started, man. And this is the most popular from that initial 2007 drop of fragrances from the private blend collection of Tom Ford. A classic. All serious collectors probably do have this or should have Tobacco Vanille in their fragrance collection. All right, this next fragrance, guys, comes from the house of Joop, and this is Joop or Joop Homme. Listen, man, you can see this bottle is almost full. Do I wear this now? No. I mean, for nostalgia reasons, every now and again when I'm around the house, I may spray it on. But man, this is not what it used to be when this was released in the 80s. I want to say around 88 was when this was originally released. I could be wrong, but around that time frame, Joop Homme was released and everybody had this fragrance. Everybody had it. Everybody had to have this fragrance because at the time, this was another fragrance that was kind of groundbreaking when it was released originally back in the late 80s. Now, since that time frame, this fragrance is not what it used to be. Is this fragrance a chemical mess at this point? Yeah, it is. Do I wear it often? No, I don't. But we're talking about collecting. If we're talking about collecting, it's not just about what smells great and I'm going to wear it today. It's about the whole kind of history of fragrances. And this is one of those fragrances that is hard to, in my opinion, say you're collecting and not at least have a bottle of this in your collection. One of the most iconic fragrances of all time. And I know there's a lot of people that still rock this. I mean, one of my favorite fragrances in the world was made off of the back of this DNA, of course, which was, I'm talking about original Santal. So Again, it doesn't smell bad. Again, just chemical mess at this point, but it's still a classic. And every fragrance collector, if you're serious, does have or should have a bottle of Joop, Homme, or Joop in that collection. All right, these next two fragrances, for the same reason, I'm going to put on this list. We're talking about Bleu de Chanel Parfum, and we're talking about Dior Sauvage Parfum. Now again, any iteration of this fragrance will work. I'm choosing these two fragrances because from 2015 and on, I don't think that there are two other fragrances that have had more influence on the designer fragrance industry than these two fragrances. There just haven't been. The whole blue and Broxen kind of craze to me was initiated by these two fragrances. And you'll notice these two fragrances kind of go back and forth with releasing a version of said fragrance kind of in, comparison to the other brand. So I'm pretty sure at some point we're going to have a Bleu de Chanel elixir kind of fragrance that's going to come out. It just has to, because Dior Sauvage has already done it. I haven't heard anything, but if it does, you heard it here first. But again, for what these two fragrances have been to the more modern day perfume designer fragrance industry, could not leave these two fragrances off, because I'm pretty sure, again, anybody that's reviewing fragrances that has a collection, they probably got these two or some version of it. So from the house of Chanel, Bleu de Chanel Parfum, or Bleu de Chanel, whatever version of it, and Dior Sauvage, two fragrances every collector should have in their collection. All right, guys, the next fragrance that I want to talk about is from the house of Mugler, and this is the original A Men. The original A Men. Now, of course, you guys that have been following my channel probably well know this is not my favorite from that line. Pure Havane, number one, and a close second is Pure Malt. But this fragrance, the original A Men, was released in 1996, and this is credited with giving birth to the genre of fragrances that I love dearly, which is gourmand fragrances. In 1996, Mr. Mugler brought out this fragrance right here that featured a note of patchouli, and people kind of didn't know what to make of it at first because it was so unique. There is this infamous tar note that people talk about in the opening of this fragrance, and yes, it can be a little bit off-putting. I did not like it when I first started collecting, but as I grew and my nose grew and my taste and palate changed, I grew to love this fragrance, and I can do nothing but appreciate what it has been to the fragrance community. Again, it gave birth to one of my favorite genres of fragrances, which is the category of gourmand. Every serious collector should have a bottle of this in their collection from the house of Mugler. This is the original A Men. Last fragrance goes without saying, man. Every serious collector has this. Even if they don't rock it anymore, they have it. There's been so many flankers that have come out from the original. Again, you're probably rocking one of the newer release flankers, and I don't blame you for that, but every serious collector should have this from the house of Giorgio Armani. This is Acqu Di Gio. Another fragrance that was released in 1996. That seemed to be a good year for game-changing fragrances. I think these fragrances helped to make the whole industry of fragrances even more popular. Acqu Di Gio, again, you had A Men, you had Jean-Paul Gaultier that came out, La Mer around the same time. Those fragrances all on the list kind of helped push the popularity of fragrances to the mainstream world. And this fragrance was probably one of the best. I think this is the best-selling men fragrance of all time, at least the last time I checked, for good reason. You guys know what this is and what it does and what it has been to the world of fragrance. Every serious collector has this. Trust me, even if they're not wearing it. From the house of Giorgio Armani, this is Acqu Di Gio. And the last two fragrances that I want to talk about, I'm going to mention them kind of simultaneously as I did. Sauvage and Bleu de Chanel. Two niche fragrances that changed the niche game. You know what I'm talking about, guys. From Creed Aventus. And from the house of Maison Francis Kurkdjian, Baccarat Rouge 540. For the same reasons, when you talk about Sauvage, you talk about Bleu de Chanel, what they've been to the designer game, that's what these two fragrances have been to the genre of niche fragrances. Every serious collector has this. Even if they don't like this fragrance, even if they've talked trash about this particular fragrance, they probably have it. or they've had it. Same thing with this Baccarat Rouge 540. I think it's safe to say these are probably the two most popular niche fragrances in the world. Even the novices, even the people, you know, a lot of celebrities and stuff like that, they don't really know a whole lot about fragrances. They know about Acqu Di Aventus and they know about Baccarat Rouge 540. Two hugely popular fragrances, and to me, and rightfully so, I think both of these are equally good. And you've seen the impact they've had on the fragrance world. There are so many different clones and inspired fragrances of Acqu Di Aventus. This is number one. And then a close second, almost as many clones and inspired by fragrance DNAs of Baccarat Rouge 540. Again, even if these aren't your favorite fragrances, even if you're not wearing them right now, all serious fragrance collectors probably have had, or still have, or should have both Acqu Di Aventus and Baccarat Rouge 540 in their collections. But that's it, guys. That's my time. I hope you enjoyed this list today. What are some fragrances you feel like every serious fragrance collector should have in their collection? I would love to hear from you guys down in the comments section. As always, I sincerely appreciate your time and your attention to these videos. I know you don't have to watch, but you do, and I sincerely appreciate that. Now don't forget to make sure you take a few moments to go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you are sharing these videos out to some other folks out there that you think could use this information or find it entertaining. Because I'm your boy, Darren. I'm the Bowtie Fragrance Guy. I love to look good, and of course, I love to smell amazing. So until next time, guys, keep looking good, keep smelling even better. I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.